But it's also the PC party, regardless of who the leader is. They have made a strategic decision. Every move they make on policy is based on insider deals, hostile to the grassroots of their base, and they really don't care. They don't care about their own base, and they don't care for conservative values because they have made a conscious effort to replace their voter base with that of the Liberal Party. They champion Justin Trudeau. They champion all Liberal policies, either from the McGuinty-Wynne era or from Justin Trudeau federally. And this is just par for the course. But there's no bigger example. You know, I've been around now campaigning on the road, talking to people about the issues of the New Blue Party. And there's no better example that I can give to people in meet and greets and other venues than when I tell them that the Ford PC government, not forced by anyone, went ahead and gave the Toronto Star the first online gambling license. And then the Liberal lobbyist who used to work for Dalton McGuinty that represented the Star is now the head of the Ontario Lottery Gaming Commission. It wasn't even unforced error is what they would call it.
Yes.
Not even an error. It was done on purpose. There's no better example to show you that the Ford PCs are just a wing of the Justin Trudeau Liberal Party.
Once upon a time in Ontario, and for that matter, the entire country, legalized gambling was limited to going to the local horse racing track or maybe acquiring an Irish sweepstakes ticket. But beginning in the mid-70s, lottery tickets became a fact of life. Later on came casinos and sports betting. But today there is a multitude of online gambling options. One needn't go to a casino nor a convenience store to wager. Rather, betting can now be facilitated via one's smartphone. Yet it is most curious that the first entity to receive such a gambling license was the Toronto Star. But why? What does a newspaper publisher know about sports betting? And why was TorStar approved, and who approved them? It's especially baffling given that Premier Doug Ford has never been hesitant to say how much he loathed the Toronto Star, given the journalistic jihad this newspaper conducted on his late great brother, Rob Ford, back when Rob was mayor of Toronto. But now it seems that all is forgiven, given that the Star is not being condemned anymore, but rather rewarded. And again, the question remains, why? Joining me now to shed some light on this mysterious situation is Jim Karahalios, the leader of the New Blue Party of Ontario. Jim, so happy that you came into our studio to do this interview. I've got lots of questions. I'm sure you have lots of answers. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of that, folks, I want you to check out this video from the New Blue Party regarding this issue of how the TorStar Corporation got this license to begin with.
Did you know the Toronto Star got the first license in Ontario to make an online casino? Why would Ontario let liberal and left-wing establishment media, like the Toronto Star, suck $500 million out of the pockets of Ontario families? Will Doug Ford defund the Toronto Star? No, because Doug Ford approved this liberal jackpot. Doug Ford gave a $500 million online gambling license, the first of its kind in Ontario, to the Toronto Star. And then he gave the Ontario Lottery Gaming Commission another $500 million of your taxpayer money. And after all that, Doug Ford put the Toronto Star's lobbyist, a liberal lobbyist, in charge of it all. Doug Ford, good for liberals, bad for Ontario families. That's why we created a new party, the New Blue Party of Ontario, because the PC party just isn't blue and they are not for you. Let us stand up for you with the New Blue.
Wow, Jim, lots to unpack there. But first, what is the unspoken strategy here in TorStar, a newspaper publisher, getting a lottery license and a publisher of newspapers that have been very unfriendly to Doug Ford and the PC Party of Ontario. What's going on?
It's amazing because 2 years ago, TorStar was going bankrupt, right? They were down to like, I don't know, cents on the stock market.
Penny stock, yeah.
And they had to get private investors to pull it off, buy the stock, pull it off the stock market. And they had a plan, they said, this big plan to revitalize the Toronto Star. No one's reading the Toronto Star. No one cares because terrible journalism. And lo and behold, here's the plan: to go to the government with a Liberal lobbyist, the Ford PC government, and say, we want a gambling license because no one is reading our newspaper. No one wants to read the crap we're putting out there, the junk. And so we need a license to do online gambling to fund social justice journalism. And they're not shy about it, Dave. Like, they are openly saying they are funding their newspaper with this online gambling license when they come into force and effect.
Well, but the thing is, I mean, absolutely, Jim, newspapers, magazines, these are sunset industries. They're withering on the vine. Everything's moving online. It's hard to monetize online content. I got that. This is Christmas Day for the Toronto Star getting a gambling license. But why would Doug Ford, he's never been hesitant in calling out the Toronto Star. I remember going back to here, October 2014, when he allegedly called the Star City Hall reporter, Jennifer Pagliaro, quote, "I can't stand that little bitch," end quote.
Wow.
So, and he said even worse things. And I think some of it's been justified in terms of the way the Toronto Star, Daniel Dale, et cetera, treated his brother back in the day when Rob was alive. So he's always had a bit of an axe to grind with the Star, and I would say justifiably so. But how does it go from this is an enemy to this is an entity worthy of giving this gift to?
Well, the Toronto Star, there's no bigger enemy in media to conservative values, to protecting the taxpayer, to people of faith than the Toronto Star. And look, there's two aspects to your question. And you can ask the PC lobbyists that run their party what their strategy is. But it's pretty obvious when you look at it. Number one, the quote you just said, and that's the old Doug Ford, when he was being led by his brother Rob. And Rob was a hero of the values that so many Ontarians share. And when Doug Ford got 2.3 million votes in 2018, people were calling him Rob Ford. They thought he was Rob. Doug is a follower. He's not a leader. So back then he was following Rob. And Rob was a leader and he showed how to win. The other half is not only is Doug now following the lobbyists in charge of the PC party and giving favors to the Toronto Star because he can't handle the criticism, he can't handle the heat, but it's also the PC party, regardless of who the leader is. They have made a strategic decision. Every move they make on policy is based on insider deals, hostile to the grassroots of their base. And they really don't care. They don't care about their own base, and they don't care for conservative values because they have made a conscious effort to replace their voter base with that of the Liberal Party. They champion Justin Trudeau. They champion all Liberal policies, either from the McGuinty win era or from Justin Trudeau federally. And this is just par for the course. But there's no bigger example. You know, I've been around now campaigning on the road, talking to people about the issues of the New Blue Party. And there's no better example that I can give to people in meet and greets and other venues than when I tell them that the Ford PC government, not forced by anyone, went ahead and gave the Toronto Star the first online gambling license. And then the Liberal lobbyist who used to work for Dalton McGuinty that represented the Star is now the head of the Ontario Lottery Gaming Commission. It wasn't even unforced error is what they would call it.
Yes. Not
Not even an error. It was done on purpose. There's no better example to show you that the Ford PCs are just a wing of the Justin Trudeau Liberal Party.
Sadly and unfortunately, I think you're accurate, Jim. I'll give you a personal anecdote. Back in September of 2017, so almost 5 years ago, Doug Ford was in this very studio, sitting where you are now. We had a wonderful interview, and at the end, he said, Dave, this reminds me back in the days of the Sun News Network. Do you remember Ford Nation? Wouldn't it be great if we got those red, white, and blue Ford Nation signs and we revived the show? And I said, oh my God, Doug, you name the time, the dates, I'll be the host. And what happened is that weeks turned into months. The next time I saw him was at a press conference at November, and I came up to him and I said, Doug, I've sent you so many text messages and emails and voicemails, and you don't get back to me. My boss Ezra wants to get on this Ford Nation show. And he said to me, Dave, you see, I really want to do it, but the team, Dave, the team, those are his exact words.
Right.
And I started to get a little queasy feeling. I thought, back then he was running for mayor of Toronto. The Patrick Brown coup hadn't happened yet.
Right.
But are you a leader, or are you, a puppet of the team? So I think that backs up your hypothesis, Jim.
And we all gave Doug a chance, right? Because we were so desperate for hope to get Ontario back on the right track. People were desperate for a change. And, he's got the Ford last name, and he was saying some of the right things, that repeating what Rob had said, repeating the Axe the Carbon Tax message, which 5 years later, politicians are still pumping Axe the Carbon Tax, Dave.
Yeah.
So we gave him a chance, but it's very clear, like, this PC party is beyond redemption. They, on issue after issue, they continue to toe the Liberal line, to extend Liberal policy, and they have invented new ways to reward social justice advocates. And the Toronto Star casino license is the paramount example of how they're coming up with new ways. Federally, Conservatives, Conservative Party of Canada, PPC, anywhere you look, Conservatives are talking about getting rid of the taxpayer subsidy of the media, right? It's almost across the board, if you're not a Liberal, that we all agree. Provincially, the Doug Ford PC party is coming up with new ways to fund media, and media that is hostile to everything their voter base stands for.
It's amazing, and you're quite right. Whenever I go to a Pierre Poilievre rally, a Maxime Bernier rally, when they both are simpatical with one plank at least, which is defund the CBC, the standing ovation, it almost brings the ceiling down. It's so loud.
Right.
And yet here we have the PC government going the other way. But I did reach out to TorStar a couple of times. It's funny, they don't return my calls or emails. The Star is so intrusive in its reporting because the public has the right to know.
Right.
But when you put the spotlight on them, they suddenly clam up. So I do want to hear what they have to say. I'll reach out yet again. But where do you think this is going to go? And also the opposition parties, such as the NDP, the Liberals, have they gone on record as decrying this deal?
Belinda's asked the question in the legislature, challenged them. It's amazing the Liberals, the NDP, and none of the independents won't even touch this. They're all, we can't rock the boat too much, right?
I don't understand.
And, I guess they don't want to upset the relationships, upset the apple cart with what's going on. But I can tell you where it's going. Yeah. We're going in an election campaign. We got our platform, the new blueprint. Yeah. And one of the things that we're promising that's getting overwhelming response in meet and greets is to defund the Toronto Star and get rid of this license, strip them of this online gambling license. It's interesting that since we launched our video ad and since we brought this to light, they haven't gone live with their online gambling system yet. And the market just opened up in Ontario a couple weeks ago. Yeah. So it's interesting that they're stalling. Maybe there's some internal issues there. I don't know. Maybe they're getting blowback. But we're going to keep campaigning on it, raise the issue. And we're, from a provincial level, we're also going to fight this funding of establishment media from Justin Trudeau while Doug Ford champions him. The more we raise these issues, the more we push these issues forward. No one else in the political environment politically is willing to talk about it, not even independents like Rick Nichols. We're going to put it on the map, shine a light on this stuff. And voters in Ontario, not just typical Conservative voters, when they hear about this stuff, they're up in arms. They can't believe it. Yeah. And it's up to the New Blue Party to keep pushing and moving things forward.
I think we've learned in the past 4 years that Doug Ford is not Rob Ford. Mm-hmm. And I think many Ontarians, including myself, thought they were interchangeable. They were, twins almost in terms of ideology and leadership. Clearly, that's not the case. And when you speak of Ford Nation, I go back to 2 years ago this month when the first anti-lockdown protests were happening on Queen's Park lawns. And Doug Ford infamously labeled those people a bunch of yahoos.
Right.
And a lot of people said, oh, that was his, and I can tell you, most of those people who I talked to, the vast majority did vote PC in 2018.
Yes.
A lot of people said that was Doug Ford's Hillary Clinton basket full of deplorables moment. And I said, no, Hillary Clinton was aiming her guns at Trump supporters. Doug is aiming his at his own supporters. So I'm wondering, do you think that insult that's going to linger coming into June 2nd? So many of these people feel disenfranchised and they might either support other parties like yours or just stay at home.
Well, we're seeing growth with the New Blue Party. Our biggest challenge is awareness, right? Mm-hmm. Because we've just got started a year and a half ago, and the establishment media and other establishment voices are doing their best to suppress the fact that we exist. And look, let's face it, the PC brand, the Liberal brand, they're over 100 years old. Mm-hmm. New Canadians, my grandmother didn't even speak English, but she knew PC. Mm-hmm. She knew what PC was. She knew what Liberal was. So we're up against that. The Ford brand is still very strong, and we're up against that. But increasingly, we're seeing across Ontario, people want another option, and they're not happy with the Ford PCs. And it's our job to keep moving forward, keep telling people there's another option. You don't have to just vote for the establishment parties, and to shine a light on these topics. Because while everyone is focused on, legitimately focused on COVID measures and whether they're going to return, on education, there are these nefarious deals being cut in the back for the Toronto Star, for funding the political parties with taxpayer money. And it's not getting attention. Obviously, under the guise of COVID, this stuff is being done. And it's our job to get the word out there and keep pushing, Dave. So I don't predict the future. I don't know how fast it's going to happen, but I know if we keep moving forward, more and more people hear about us, they support us. And I also know that if the New Blue Party stops, Dave, if we stop, stuff like this is going to go under the radar, and it's never going to get flagged for Ontarians to make a decision on.
Well, Jim, thanks for chipping away at this file. There's a lot of known knowns, but there are far more unknown knowns. And you know what, folks, we're going to continue to dig into this online casino license. If you had told me that TorStar, a newspaper publisher, several months ago was going to get this lucrative online gambling license, I would have said the odds of that occurring would make the most reckless gambler cringe, but here we are. They got it. We still have to find out why they got it and what's in it for Doug Ford and the PCs. We'll continue to ask questions on this in the weeks and months to come. Hey folks, before you know it, summer is going to be here, so get ready to have fun in the sun by wearing some of the newest Rebel News merchandise. We've got new t-shirts, sweatshirts, caps, you name it. Wear your politics on your sleeve when it comes to supporting Rebel News and looking quite fashionably as you do so. Please go to rebelnewsstore.com. That's rebelnewsstore.com and place your order today.